Today what I'd like to do is begin our survey of Genesis 1 through 11 in order to illustrate the way that biblical writers drew upon the cultural and religious legacy of the ancient Near East that we've been talking about, its stories and its imagery, even as they transformed it in order to conform to a new vision of a non-mythological God. We're going to be looking at some of Kaufman's ideas as we read some of these texts. Now, one of the scholars who's written quite extensively and eloquently on the adaptation of ancient Near Eastern motifs in biblical literature is a scholar by the name of Nahum Sarna. I highly recommend his book. I'll be drawing very heavily on Sarna's work as well as the work of some other scholars who have spent a great deal of time comparing Israelite and ancient Near Eastern stories, particularly these opening chapters, in order to see the features that they share and to wonder if perhaps there isn't, after all, a chasm that divides them quite deeply. In our consideration of Genesis 1 and 2, we first need to consider a Babylonian epic, an epic that is known by its opening words, Enuma Elish, which means when on high, the opening words of this epic. And the epic opens before the formation of heaven and earth. Nothing existed except water. And water existed in two forms. There's the primeval freshwater ocean, which is identified with a male divine principle, a male god, Apsu. You have a primeval saltwater ocean, which is identified with a female divine principle, Tiamat. Tiamat appears as this watery ocean, but also as a very fierce dragon-like monster. It begins, when on high the heaven had not been named, firm ground below had not been called by name, naught but primordial Apsu, their begetter, and Mumu Tiamat, she who bore them all, their waters commingling as a single body. No reed hut had been matted, no marshland had appeared, when no gods whatever had been brought into being. Uncalled by name, their destinies undetermined, then it was that the gods were formed within them. So there's some sort of commingling or union of this male and female divine, these male and female divine principles, a sexual union of Apsu and Tiamat that begins a process of generation. And it produces first demons and monsters. Eventually, gods will begin to emerge. Now, in time, Tiamat and Apsu are disturbed by the din and the tumult of these younger gods. The divine brothers banded together. They disturbed Tiamat as they surged back and forth. Yea, they troubled the mood of Tiamat by their hilarity in the abode of heaven. Apsu, opening his mouth, said unto resplendent Tiamat, their ways are verily loathsome unto me. By day I find no relief, nor repose by night. I will destroy, I will wreck their ways, that quiet may be restored. Let us have rest. Then answered Mumu Tiamat, giving counsel to Apsu. Ill-wishing and ungracious was Mumu's advice. Do destroy, my father, the mutinous ways, then shalt thou have relief by day and rest by night. When Apsu heard this, his face grew radiant because of the evil he planned against the gods, his sons. So he decides to destroy the gods. Now, he is thwarted by a water god named Ea, an earth water god, sorry, he's a combination, earth water god named Ea. And Apsu is killed. Tiamat now is enraged, and she's bent on revenge. She makes plans to attack all of the gods with her assembled forces. The gods are terrified, and they need a leader to lead them against her army. And they turn to Marduk. Marduk agrees to lead them in battle against Tiamat and her assembled forces. Her forces are under the, generalship of Kingu. And he agrees to lead them against Tiamat and Kingu on condition that he be granted sovereignty, right? And he sets terms. His heart exulting, he said, Creator of the gods, destiny of the great gods, if indeed I, as your avenger, am to vanquish Tiamat and save your lives, then set up the assembly, proclaim supreme my destiny. Let my word, instead of you, determine the fates. Unalterable shall be what I may bring into being. Neither recalled nor changed shall be the command of my lips. And the agreement is struck. And Marduk fells Tiamat in battle. It's a fierce battle, and there is, in fact, a memorable passage that details her demise. In fury, Tiamat cried out aloud. To the roots her legs shook both together, and then joined issue Tiamat and Marduk. They strove in single combat, locked in battle. The Lord Marduk spread out his net to enfold her. The evil wind which followed behind he let loose in her face. When Tiamat opened her mouth to consume him, he drove in the evil wind, that she closed not her lips. And as the fierce winds charged her belly, her body was distended and her mouth was wide open. He released the arrow. It tore her belly. It cut through her inside, splitting the heart. Having thus subdued her, he extinguished her life. He cast down her carcass to stand upon it. Well, what do you do with the carcass of a ferocious monster? You build a world. And that's what Marduk did. He takes the carcass, he slices it into two halves, rather like a clamshell, and out of the top half, he creates the firmament, the heaven. With the other half, he creates the land, the earth. He split her like a shellfish into two parts. Half of her he set up and sealed as a sky, pulled down the bar, and posted guards. He bade them to allow not her waters to escape. Right? So he has used her body to press back her waters, and that's what the sealing is, the firmament, a firm a sheet or structure that's holding back waters. When little holes come along, that's rain coming through. And the bottom part is the land, which is pressing down waters below. They come up every now and then in springs and rivers and seas and lakes and things. That is the created world. But he doesn't stop there, and he creates various heavenly bodies at this point. He constructed stations for the great gods. The heavenly bodies are understood as stations for the great gods, fixing their astral likenesses as constellations. He determined the year by designating the zones. He set up 3 constellations for each of the 12 months. The moon he caused to shine, the night to him and trusting. And then the complaints begin to roll in. The gods are very unhappy because they have now been assigned specific duties in the maintenance of the cosmos. You know, the moon god has to come up at night and hang around for a while and go back down, and the sun has to trundle across the sky. And they're pretty unhappy about this, and they want relief from working and laboring at their assigned stations. And so Marduk accedes to this demand. He takes blood from the slain general Kingu, the leader of Tiamat's army, the rebels, and he fashions a human being, with the express purpose of freeing the gods from menial labor. Blood I will mass and cause bones to be. I will establish a savage. Man shall be his name. Verily, savage man I will create. He shall be charged with the service of the gods, that they might be at ease. It was Kingu who contrived the uprising and made Tiamat rebel and joined battle. So they bound him, holding him before Ea, and out of Kingu's blood they fashioned mankind, and Ea imposed the service and let free the gods. So the grateful gods now recognize the sovereignty of Marduk, and they build him a magnificent shrine or temple in Babylon, pronounced Bab-El, which simply means gateway of the god. The gate of the god. Babylon means the city that is the gateway of the god. And a big banquet follows, and Marduk is praised for all that he's accomplished, and his kingship is confirmed. And Enuma Elish ends.